Hello everybody and welcome to another of the series of Captive Reviews virtual symposium series. As we wait for the last few delegates to join us, just like to remind everyone that we launched this series about 7 days after the UK went into lockdown in 2020, and we've been running the series pretty regularly throughout, and they've proven hugely popular. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining these regularly over the last 16, 14, 15, 16 months or so. The lockdown proved that IT systems were integral to keeping the world moving as much as it possibly could. And probably as often as, or as recent as 3 or 4 years ago, the developments in IT wouldn't have been integrated into the businesses, which has made almost seamless transition to home working as it is. IT plays such a vital role in our world at the moment, and it continues to develop. And we're really happy to welcome our sponsors today, Noria, who are presenting the first of 3 in a series throughout the year, looking at IT and the role it plays in captive insurance. Throughout the session, you can pose your questions if you wish. We're using today Slido. If you visit slido.com and you put in the hashtag where it prompts to say join as a panelist, the hashtag captive review, and you can pose any questions there. And at the end of the session, there'll be a poll, which if you visit slido.com, you'll be able to ask the poll as well. So I think the numbers have just slowed down a bit now. So I'm really pleased to hand over to Ronnie Repper of Noria, and he will introduce the panel. I'll be back at the end to welcome you and go through any questions and answers we've got at the end of the session. Okay, Ronnie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nick, and welcome to all participants. Can I have the next slide, please? We have a very interesting panel here today. We have William Thomas Brown from Marsh Captive Management. He is international practice leader there, and we're going to talk about digitalization for captive from a captive manager perspective. And we have Kjell van der Voren from Heineken's captive roaming. He is global insurance manager there, and he's going to talk about how Heineken has implemented IT solutions to improve operations of their captives. Me, myself, I'm Ronny Reppe, CEO of the Nudia software company. I'm going to talk about digitalization and digital transition for captives, also in the perspective on how general insurance have digitized in the last 5 years. Can I have the next slide, please? First, a short introduction of Nudia software. We've been developing core solutions for captives and marine insurance since 1985. We are one of the biggest vendors, international vendors for specific software to this industry. Next slide, please. We are working and have been working a long time with big international insurance companies such as Guard, and we are also working with a lot of captives, Statkraft, Hydro, Heineken, and Skanska among them. We've been working with several captives for over 20 years. Next slide, please. Looking at digitalization for captives, I find it very interesting to look at how the rest of the insurance industry has targeted digitalization, and what are the ongoing trends, and how does it look going forward. So I'll use a couple minutes to go through kind of the generic trends we see in insurance industry as a whole, before we dig directly into the specific digital for captives. If you can go back again. Thank you. Digital customer journey has been there a long time, but we see a lot of things happening when it comes to how digital is supported for an insurance customer. Sending letter, self-service, providing personalized analytics is part of this trend. And everything is packaged in a My Site web delivery service with a secure login. So as an insurance customer in 2021, we expect to log into a digital portal where we can look upon our invoices or policies. We can add a claim. We can even send a question to the insurance company in a digital chat and get a quick answer from the customer. So we're starting to get more and more used to a digital customer journey. What is happening at the moment is this digital journey is more and more customized towards the client. In a B2B setting for insurance, we see insurance company providing specific analytics towards that specific customer. So as a company, I can log into my portal and look upon my claims history, my benchmark towards other companies, and get specific claims advice on how to avoid future claims. So that's one of the big trends we see in the insurance industry. Of course, data and analytics is a big trend. It's been there for a while, but the last few years it's been really picking up. And in 2021, you're not able to do a good job as an insurer without having an advanced analytics solution in place. Efficiency and automation has been there as a foundation for digitalization all the time, but it's still there. And the insurance industry as a whole is still notorious for slow, many manual inputs, input of data into several systems, and there's still a lot of work to do when it comes to being where it should be as an industry. Another thing that is changing the industry is connected insurance. A connected insurance means that you have sensor data that either change the way you insure insurance objects by getting direct sensor information from the insured object, or even do claims handling based on the information you get from sensors on board of a ship or a car or even a refrigerator connected directly to your system have started to have major impact on both insurance product and the way we interact with our customers. That goes under the name of connected insurance. There's also starting to get more and more insurance ecosystems. We have known ecosystems for many years. In the reinsurance industry is an ecosystem for insurance, but we also see that there is ecosystem on the sales side where we sell insurance as integrated into other systems. A familiar way of thinking of ecosystem on the sales side is the way when you order plane tickets, or used to order plane tickets before COVID, we could insure that flight by adding insurance to your plane ticket. That is a way that is also an ecosystem and more development. Not all of this is that relevant for captives. I find the three first most relevant for captives, while connected insurance can be interesting for specific captives to get more data into your system. I'll move on to the more specific for captives. So if I can have this next slide, please. One of the things I love as a manager of a company is to have dashboard with steering information. I think everybody should have their own specific dashboard, and this is very, very relevant also for captives, where your stakeholders or customers can have a claims and a detailed dashboard where they see their specific claims history, insured objects, and statistics towards other internal companies or even outside benchmarks where they could and should relate to. So one of the things we've seen and started to develop is actually specific dashboards for companies within the group of the captive. A dashboard can also be a dashboard for the management within the captive or a claims handler that works in the captive to do the claims handling, where specific information where they get a dashboard that is relevant for their role. And of course, reporting dashboards for the management and owner of the captive with live data saves a lot of time and gives a lot of interesting information for the captive owner. So one of the big trends we see for captives is dashboard, and we believe a captive can provide more value by providing specific personalized dashboard for the different stakeholders around the captive. Next slide, please. Another of the big things we've seen is a big interest in the way stakeholders interact with the captive. There's a lot of stakeholders to the captives, so it's not a single solution here, but we've seen the captives more and more interested in digitizing interactions with their stakeholders, either as insured or even reinsurers or owners is within the stakeholder interaction group. Here we see a claims form where the insurance manager of a OPCO can register as a claim that is sent directly to the captive. This is a way to improve efficiency and have better data when it comes to adding claims in a simpler way from the company in the international group to the captive. In this portal, you can also look at all your insured objects. You can change value, add and remove objects. You can look upon your active insurances. You can download policies and invoices, and you can also chat with the captive if you have specific questions that you cannot get answered to, even very previously had to use phone or email to talk to the special competence within the captive. Next slide, please. The third where to start area I would like to put forward is efficiency and automation. When it comes to efficiency automation, of course, live dashboards that I showed in the first slide is improving efficiency a lot, where captives previously work days or hours to set up a PowerPoint presentation with interesting information to their stakeholders. Instead, they can provide them with a live, all the time available dashboard that they could go into. Saves a lot of time for the captive to administrate information such as analytics. Also, of course, stakeholders interaction that was in the second slide is also improving efficiency automation, but there is a lot to gain on improving efficiency also within a captive. The hard thing about captives or efficiency is there is no silver bullet. So when it comes to this, you need to dig into the way your specific captive operate, understand where there is low-hanging fruits to improve efficiency. It can be reporting, or it can be the way you communicate with the stakeholders, or the way you set up communication reports for reinsurers. There is always something to gain, and our recommendation is to always have a yearly budget earmarked for efficiency improvement. That way, you put a mindset into the employees within the captives to always look for improvements when it comes to efficiency. And that creates a culture for improvement that again gains the captive and provides more value long term. But even for a captive, there is a lot to gain by focusing on also on efficiency. Of course, all of these three is dependent of having a sound insurance system in place already. So that's the foundation of what we start with, and then compliancy and government reporting is part of that platform that you already have in place. But my message here is don't stop when you're compliant. It's a lot more to gain by targeting one of these trends. Is what we've seen happening within captives the last 3 to 5 years. So that's it from me today. Next slide, and over to William.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Ronnie. If we go on to the next slide, please. So I represent Marsh. I have lived in various places around the world, from Bermuda to Malta, now the UK, and cover numerous different domiciles, I think about 50 in total. But the reason I'm speaking today is to give you a little overview, I suppose, of what we as the largest captive manager are doing to try to drive efficiency, integration, and a client focus to our IT strategy. One of my roles is sitting on our IT steering committee for Captive Solutions, and we have a core group of about 15 colleagues who are really passionate about IT. And we took the decision several decades ago. I mean, Marsh has been managing captives for over 50 years. I think Bermuda, Guernsey were the first domiciles that set up, but we took the decision many years ago to build our own IT system, and we call that core GCMS. That stands for Global Captive Management System, and it's really, I believe, the only integrated captive insurance system that there is. So it integrates a general ledger, doing the accounting work, with the insurance side, booking the claims, booking the premiums, earning the premiums, creating ultimates, setting reserves, and then it integrates it in addition with the cash, the treasury, and a lot of the compliance functions as well. So this little word map in front of you shows some of my notes from some of these IT steering meetings that we've had over the last year or so. When we think about the way that captives are evolving, there is sort of a life cycle to a captive. So we have to cater for the most simple startup captive, perhaps fully fronted, so reinsurance captive, to the giant captive running multiple lines, doing some of the very latest risks that are on the horizon for the parent. It's quite challenging to create one system that's able to do from the simple to the complex. And when you combine that with so many different domiciles, different regulation as well, whether we're talking about Solvency II in Europe, IFRS 17 coming in and international, then US GAAP, Bermuda financial reporting. We have to create the linkages from this general ledger to each of our stakeholders in the most efficient way possible. There are multiple stakeholders at the same time. So definitely most importantly is the risk management department. We'll hear from Shell a little bit later, but the risk management department is effectively the owner of the captive. The captive is a part of that risk management strategy. So that's where so many of the strategic decisions around what will be considered for the captive will take place. But then we have the board of directors, and there may be non-exec directors involved who are particularly interested in the compliance aspects or have a different lens that they're looking through in terms of their directors' responsibilities. And the regulators, we actually have conferred with regulators several times now on the most efficient way of delivering information to them. We have a tendency, I suppose, in finance to use so many spreadsheets, but spreadsheets do have a weakness, and that's really human error, particularly when they're very old spreadsheets, complex spreadsheets. If we can derive information from our system and have it going straight to regulators in an automated fashion, it's going to really make it more reliable, make it more timely, and hopefully make it more accurate. Then the internal auditors and finance department and the external auditors to a large extent as well, they want to look into the controls, yes, but they want to look into the detail of the transactions. So we have to cater for them. Treasury want to know about where the assets are, where the funds are, sometimes what the returns are, what the potential for using captive assets are. And then, of course, compliance. We have to build controls into our system. So GCMS has numerous different layers of controls, whether they just be access controls, whether it be in line with GDPR, or whether it be treasury controls. So out of GCMS, the hub, I suppose, the data lake, we are able to harness, I suppose, all of the data that's in there for a particular captive. And it's the reporting that comes out that becomes the really interesting side. We have, I don't know quite the number, but let's call it 50 standard reports that come out of GCMS. Press of a button, you can run an underwriting analysis. You can run it for a historical period. You can run it for a quarter, a year, a particular underwriting year. It's wonderfully intuitive just to be able to run that from the data that's in there rather than having to customize a spreadsheet. I'll touch on internet banking quickly. Our portal that allows clients to access their captive data, GCMS feeds into that. It's called marshmanagement.com. And we're starting to see more and more interest in this. Some clients like it. Some clients, I think, haven't got there yet, but I think most of them will. The ability to self-serve, to be able to run your own reports, or for some directors, be able to look up the last minutes of the meeting, or look up your policies. We can do all of these things through GCMS. If we could just flick onto the next slide, please. A few case studies of how, I suppose, success stories have evolved. And we often come across these case studies when we're taking over an established captive, perhaps a captive that's been extremely dependent on Excel. And the self-service underwriting reports I mentioned earlier, quite similar to the dashboard that Ronnie showed earlier. The any data that's in the system can be got out. But if that data has been maintained on spreadsheets for potentially decades, it is quite a significant challenge inputting it all into the system. But once it's in the system, you have the most amazing ability to run the reports you want. And our IT staff, and we have a team of IT staff in Marsh Captives. We have a budget set aside of about $2 million a year for our IT progressive spend. So we can actually customize reports. If the data's in the system, we can get it out. Many clients are happy with the standard reports, but many request a particular format, perhaps something that can be uploaded to their system. And that encourages the automation, makes things more efficient. We can also upload into the system. So in the ideal world, instead of entering numerous entries, we would receive certain data in a format that we can then upload it into GCMS, feed it in directly so that we minimize the human error. Perhaps another good case study is the digital signing. That's become even more, I suppose, relevant with the COVID world we've lived in for the last year or so. Having an interface between our system and the bank. We haven't yet done it with every bank in the world, but we've done it with a significant number, the ones that are used by the most captives, so that we can actually have our system send instructions directly to the bank rather than worrying about wire forms, checks, any other manual way of payment. And one of the advantages actually of the whole treasury aspect and digital signing is that we cover off an awful lot of the controls around anti-money laundering, trade sanctions, because our system also screens any payees against the various lists of sanctions on the OFAC list. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention benchmarking. We have about 1,400 captives around the world that use GCMS. And so there's a huge quantity of data in there. But we're very aware that some clients want to keep that data incredibly confidential. They want it to be specific to their company, whereas others want to know perhaps what's going on in their industry. And we have to take a fine balance there when we produce industry data, because while we can access it, we maybe should not on all occasions. So there's an opt-in or opt-out regime, but we can produce some very interesting trends for particular industries, particular lines of business, for particular uses of cash. And we compile these in our landscape report, which is produced each year. There should be another version coming out a little bit later this year. Last year's version was delayed, and we made it even more relevant to the COVID world. I will stop talking now and hand over to Shell. Will we go back to you first, Ronnie? And
no, I think we go directly to Shell.
Okay, here we are, Shell.
Okay, thank you, Will. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you to all the participants of joining us. Yes, as Global Insurance Manager, I'm now in my function for 4 years within Heineken. And when I came to Heineken and started as a director of our owned captive, what I found was that we were using multiple systems. We were using an extreme amount of spreadsheets. These were old spreadsheets. Data in there was from a long history. And it wasn't always quite easy as a manager of that captive to know what was really going on, or even to have a type of, I wouldn't even have called it a dashboard at the time, but I would have said what's happening today or what's happening over the past month or so. That was difficult for the people to provide that kind of data and to be able to share that in a way that it would be easy to read. So from that point on time, I started talking to people in IT and trying to find out, okay, can we optimize that situation? And what quite soon became apparent was that what we were actually looking for was a single source of truth. Because with all these multiple systems and all these other things we used, you should really go back and try to get the data you have in a single source. So that meant financials, claims, asset values, policies, both reinsurance and for local insurances. We were using a fronter at the time already, and how the communication with that fronter was difficult to gauge. So yes, that's what we wanted. And for the future, no or at least very little gray IT. So limit the amount of spreadsheets. What was also quite apparent was that what you wanted was, what I wanted at least, was that data would be easily accessible and that you would be able to share it, but in a safe way. Not simply sending an email with a spreadsheet, but being able to send it in a way that it would be controlled, that it would be verified, and that it also would be safe from a cyber point of view, cyber tech point of view. With that, what we also wanted to do was that there was quite a lot of email going back and forth between the various parties. So within our team, but also with our clients, with what we call the operating companies, which are in 73 countries across the globe. We were sending emails to reinsurers, we were sending emails to brokers, to loss adjusters, to getting them back from them. So there was a lot of emails, and these emails were also not integrated. So where we wanted to go was do that via portals, because if you have it in a portal, then at least somebody else can read it. You don't have to CC people. So that would also mean a big improvement. Then there was one other thing, what was also quite challenging, and that was regulatory reporting, of course. So regulatory reporting, you have to do it on a regular basis in a similar way. But if you use spreadsheets, with spreadsheets each time, and you run into, hey, why is that number changed? Should it be changing? Oh, apparently we shifted some rows or some. So hell of a job to get it done each time. So that was something to improve. The other thing is, of course, audits. So our financial audits from the accountants, how do you prove that your numbers are right if you have to dig through numbers and numbers of email with emails, with spreadsheets, etc., etc. But proving that our numbers were right was always, we succeeded in it every time, but we knew it was quite a stressful period and it would be quite stressful to do it again. So it was also something that became bigger and bigger because of the numbers in the captive becoming bigger. Now, so that led to the point where we said, okay, now we have to look for a system. We were lucky that we, as a big company, had access to quite a good number of advisors, both internal and external, and we could choose from quite a number of systems. And at that time, we also thought about, okay, should we outsource? Should we maybe stop with doing it altogether ourselves, outsource it, and then rely on the outsourced partner? But looking at that from a regulatory point of view, the regulator is extremely careful, and especially in the Netherlands, with outsourcing. So who do you outsource to? Why do you outsource? And how can you prove that you are in control still yourself? So that made it for us a choice. Okay, let's find first out, can we find a system which can perform what we need and improve our efficiency? at the same time. So we decided at the end of the time to go to Nudia and use their system called Paris. And looking at Paris and working with Paris now for 1 year, full year, it is shown that indeed regulatory reporting is made easier. The financial reporting is made easier. We are indeed using portals, and indeed all our data is in that single source of truth system called Paris. We are now have the ability to perform data analysis, but in a structured way with one set of data in that single system. And what Will also said is that it is difficult to get data in. So the data coming from the multiple systems, coming from multiple spreadsheets and getting it into one system, yes, that was challenging, but it was worthwhile. At the end of the day, very worthwhile. So, for me as an insurance manager, the captive is a tool. And in these times of hard market, the captive is a very valuable tool, and did what it had to do in helping Heineken to get the most optimal insurance situation in place. That had a lot to do with us being able to do data analysis on our data and share that with the numerous stakeholders, and be a real sparring partner of the broker and the insurance companies. It was really, really important, really nice to have. I think even from my perspective, a need to have, that you are able to perform data analysis on your own data and have it at your disposal yourself. What we also find out now is that, and that's also very, very valuable in these current times of indeed COVID-19 and relying a lot on IT systems, is that we are now able to join the overall IT strategy of Heineken. So we are not lagging behind. We are not thinking, how should we combine this or that spreadsheet with this or that question, no, we can really now be part of the digitalization strategy of Heineken. We can actually enhance it by using our data. Having assets at the level of granularity we have in our insurance systems is really also helpful to Heineken as a company. So that's, I think, is what I can say about us using our system. And also that going forward, it will, from my point of view, only become more and more valuable, being able to use your data, being able to do data analysis, and being able to help the company in managing the risk and making sure that if you insure it, that you do it in the correct way. That's it from me. So I think I hand over back to Ronnie.
Thank you very much, Kjell. I think Nick is going to introduce the Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, all of you. That was hugely interesting. I think before we kick into the questions and answers to the audience, and just to remind everyone, please, that if you have any questions for us or the panel, can you just visit slido.com, slido.com, enter the hashtag captive review, and you can post your questions there. It's the easiest place to post your question. But if I'd like to just invite you all to go over to slido.com right now, we have a poll. We have a couple of questions which we would like you to answer. The first question will be when that poll will show up on the system. We're just going to ask you as to where you see the highest potential to improve your captive operation. And there's three answers to go from: compliance and faster regulatory reporting, The second lot is data and analytics, and the third is stakeholder interaction. So as we are answering those, the results will click through. So I'd be really keen for as many of you to go onto slido.com and answer those polls as they come. And it generally gives us a really interesting view on whether we'll just give people a little time to click over to those two and watch the percentages change. And you'll see the questions and answers tab on the same website at slido.com. So again, please ask. So it looks like we have an overwhelming weight towards data and analytics. And then the second question, I think we'll move on to that one, is will you invest in any of these in the next 3 years? And it's a simpler question, a simpler answer one. It's a yes or a no one. I imagine Ronnie is hoping for lots of yeses here. Good. Okay, feel free to keep continuing weighing in with that as we go. There's a few questions that have come in already, so I'm just going to post a couple here. The first one, we'll go with this one. Shell, it seems that you've come a long way. What is your recommendation to get started, and which area did you need to look into first?
To get started is first get a very good view on what you have, because if you want to move to somewhere else, you need to know what you already have and who your partners are and what are your stakeholders, how to do it, and then and do that with a good team of people, because it's impossible to know it all by yourself or with a small group of people, because you really need people from accounting with accounting backgrounds, you need people with insurance background, you need people with IT background, you need infrastructure people, which I learned are not strictly IT people. They should know about how to move data from one system to the other. So that's so really get a good team around you before you start, when you start, and that you make the right decisions, because it's very hard to change your decisions once you've made them. So that's where you really need to look into first. Really know what do you have.
Can I jump in there also? You said you've been running with Noria for just over a full year now. How long from considering outsourcing to then, implementation did it take?
2.5 years.
Right. Okay. So it's a classic captive scenario. Nothing happens overnight. A question then, I think for you, Will, have you used the data in your integrated system for machine learning purposes on behalf of your client? And if so, what were they?
Interesting. I mean, AI, artificial intelligence, was one of the things on my little word map earlier, and we've been discussing at length how we can use it even better. I'd say we use it extensively at the moment, but it's probably more for internal efficiency type methodologies. So perhaps if we're having to put some data in there, the machine will guide us to the correct places, or choose a policy to book it to, or choose an ultimate or an IBNR policy that we're doing. But could we do far more than that? I mean, could we, for example, have almost a review of the accounts being done by AI that picks up any variances? A lot of the time we do that with humans at the moment, but could the system do that first of all? I think the answer is definitely yes, and we're playing around with that. It'll certainly make our human reviews much easier. And then could it go on a whole next stage to, oh, you've just written property insurance in your captive. Have you considered another line of insurance that certain other captives in your industry are writing? that starts to get really interesting then. And I mean, those conversations really are conversations that we have in human form, and we will have that discussion with a client face to face. But the prompts absolutely could be generated by the system, saying perhaps you should be having this conversation at your next board of directors meeting.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels probably to me that not only are prompts, it almost offering you analytics as to why it's prompting and potential results within that as well. I think AI's got a huge amount that we'll be offended that we even call them robots in the future. But now, so moving on, there's just one to you. There's a couple for you here, Ronnie. I'll start with the top one, I think. So what's the biggest challenge from a successful IT implementation for a captive?
That's a very good question. The obvious answer is that choose the good platform and implement a good strategy for your implementation. But I find the single most important to why so many IT projects fail in insurance is lack of insurance knowledge from the IT vendor. So what I think is the biggest success criteria is choosing a vendor that knows insurance and even better, has a deep insight into captive insurance, your specific segment of insurance. That is the most important success criteria for implementing a system for a captive.
Sure.
The next question, how long did it take to install? From we started the project with Heineken till production was 5-6 months to go live. And that's the normal time we use to install a captive is between 4 and 6 months.
In terms of integrating systems, are there any hurdles that, if they use certain software already, that changing that into your data is different, or the 4 to 6 months is regardless of what the data format is?
It's when we use 4 to 6 months, we always have several data sources that we either manually or automatically convert into the one single source of truth.
Sure. And I guess the question to you, Shell, I guess could be answered by either Shell or Ronnie in terms of, I guess your experience and how is the email sending and receiving of a portal integrated into the exchange. Who wants to take that one between you two? Why don't you, Shell?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Okay,
Go ahead, Ronnie.
It's no email sending. It's directly integrated to the system. So we try to completely avoid email when we implement a portal, so that it's integrated to the system from the portal, and anything that is sent through the portal, either if it's a claim or if it's a question or whatever, it's comes in directly into the back office system, and it's available for the employees in the captive into the portal and not email.
Sure. Now, I don't think it's appropriate necessarily to talk specifically about what Heineken would have paid for the system, but I think we can ask the question to you, Shell, was, do you feel the investment was one that is giving you value and a payback that you certainly not just don't regret, but perhaps are happy with?
Costs are always something to be looked into very, very carefully, and especially in these times. These are not happy times, especially not for a beer brewer. But generally speaking, I can certainly confirm that yes, we are very happy with the return on investment. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. There was a question that was for you. I'm not convinced we'll ask the jack of all trades one. I mean, there was one that's just popped up that's just gone again. Can we see that one? No. Well, just the bottom one then. Is there a link between the system and the general claims system of insurance software of Heineken? It's at the top. Here you go.
The general claim system, there is no, we use as the claim system Paris. So
Yeah.
it's both for our opcos and in our internal systems, and also towards our reinsurers. It's that system. So that is truly the single source of truth. And one interesting thing was that when we implemented this, we had to make a decision. Do you want a system which is actually more inclined to be working as a risk management system in getting details from your operating companies on risks and then transferring that and getting it into the captive, and then also do some of the captive work? So do the administration of the captive. I think it's fair to say that Paris is more a captive administration system, but by using the portals, it is now also performing that job of getting us risk information from our opcos and using that to be able to do data analysis on that, and therefore also being a risk management system. So
Yeah. So Will, the GCMS system, can smaller captive managers white label it or take it on in any way?
Well,
I doubt it.
a challenging one. We've just spent the best part of 4 decades making this our system and investing millions every year in creating it. So I don't think we would provide it to other captive managers. I mean, we obviously provide it to captives who we service, and occasionally some captives that are semi-self-managed, I would say. There's a hybrid between fully managed and partially managed. So some partially managed captives may have access to the system as well. But we only do this where we actually provide services. We think it really sets us apart as a captive manager, having invested so much in this system. And we know from taking over various clients from other captive managers that that the clients are very pleased when they do get hold of the system and see the eradication of spreadsheets, for example. So I think the simple answer is no, we would not provide it to our competitors.
We will.
Good. So then, Ronnie, the question at the bottom there, which probably flipped to the top as soon as I say that, but are there systems that assist the managers? I knew it would do that. There you go. That is both cell and pure captive structures.
Yes. We have
putting your name to that as well.
Yeah. We have different type of captives using our system, and for a captive manager, it's a multi-company structure that is important. So at least our system is available for different type of captive structures, and can be used as a multi-company structure for several captives. So that's a yes.
Yeah, I mean, cell captives have seen a real boost in the last year and a half or so. You know, all throughout the marketplace. You know, it's certainly driven a lot of the growth in the domiciles. Even though last year, interestingly, was sort of a negative growth across the globe, probably resulting in some of the soft market in 2018 and the lag of closures there. But and then we have another question at the bottom there again. Shell, do you have also non-standard reinsurance and insurance contracts or alternative risk transfers that are hard to reflect in a standard system? And how do you do these specials? If you
we tend to avoid being very, very special because it is indeed very hard to do the administration of that and to understand it and to have it historically correct in your systems. But yes, we do have some particularities, as all big companies will have in your reinsurance structures. And what we found out is that, it's fair to say, and it's true, we are working together with Nudia and using their knowledge of the insurance market and being able to translate that into the system. And so far, we've been able to do in the system all we have in our insurance.
Great. Okay. I mean, we can look at the AI phasing out captive insurance jobs, but I mean, I think that's probably, to a degree, efficiencies will always have effects. But my guess is if it helps the industry continue to grow, then actually there'll probably be a net gain of employment within the captive market. I don't think probably anyone has any. Do you have any different views, Ronnie, on that?
No.
Brilliant. I think that probably brings us to the end then. I'd like firstly to thank our panelists, Shell, William and Ronnie, Noria, our sponsors today. Should you wish to get involved, get in touch with any of the panelists, please get in contact with us, or I'm sure you can find these guys on LinkedIn or through their corporate websites. But we can always make introductions to you should you wish to. This, as I said, is the first of 3 sessions throughout the year, spread out evenly, that Noria will be delivering us on the role of IT within captives, and we'll be discussing some more interesting things later on. But for now, we'll call it a day. Thank you very much, all of you, and thank you for all of the attendees for sticking with us for the last hour. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.